Welcome back to Consider This. Melisa and Sharaad here with you, and we're talking to Pramesh Chandran, the CEO of MalaysiaKini, celebrating its 20th anniversary. Now, just before the break, Prem, you were talking a little bit about the Press Council as well as the Freedom of Information Act. Are those things that you see coming up on the horizon?
Yes, I think both. Definitely, the government has said they will move forward with the Media Council. There have been a number of discussions. A number of organizations, including the publishers, the journalists, the lawyers, have submitted, bills or recommendations. We had a meeting with the minister earlier this year, and all that's been put together. And now I understand it's with either with the Attorney General or going to go to Cabinet. After which, hopefully, it comes soon.
I mean, one of the big issues, because when talking about the Press Council, is the presumption that self-regulation is better than government regulation coming from the state, right? I mean, that's one thing. But the issue of the composition of Press Council is also contentious, because it could become an all-boys club of owners rather than have space for the public and other interested groups, often left out marginal because they don't own media and so on and so forth. So from your point of view, what is the best model on balance? What kind of voices ought to be on the Press Council?
I think that on one hand, you do need a sizable media involvement. These are people who in the industry, their lives depend on it. It's a lot about finance and revenue. There are many other concerns. So, as kind of like an industry organization, the participation of the industry is really important, and it's split. You have radio, you have television, you have online, many forms. So, in many languages. So, to make sure those voices are represented is very important. But I do agree that journalists, editors, academics, and the public at large should be also involved. They definitely need to bring those voices in to talk about, it's basically both the supply side and the demand side. Only then it will be a more holistic media council addressing the issues. And there are serious issues to be addressed. For example, with misinformation or fake news or things like that. Where do you draw the line between freedom of speech and where do you then penalize, fake news or disinformation campaigns? There are a lot of issues to be dealt with on the commercial side as well. There's a lot of investment needed to do to train journalists. There are a lot of organizations that need to be more digital, and so there's a lot of work to do. And I think all sides need to come to the table. When we looked at all the proposals submitted, there were actually no substantial differences. That was really good. Everybody agreed on the core principles. The idea of a more self-regulated media, more responsible media, everybody's in agreement. So, and I think the government is also in agreement. That's a good thing.
But you as CEO of MalaysiaKini, you look after the business side, right?
Yes.
What about the commercial concerns? You touched on that a bit earlier. Are there, as a businessman yourself, do you look at, are there certain red flags that have come up for you?
Definitely, the question is how do we make the returns, right? That is the question. How do we manage advertising, subscription models, audits of circulation? There are lots of issues that go into the Media Council. We have an audit bureau of circulations, those sort of numbers are very important. And then obviously a Media Council will need to have a complaints bureau, which in fact, take in complaints from the public and allow for redress. But at the same time, that cannot be too much of a burden to the organization. We can't be spending 3/4 of our time dealing with complaints.
Public complaints.
Right? So those balances are critical for the financial success. And when I say financial success, I mean we have to be successful with credibility, not just be profitable and ignore the credibility of the media.
Right.
That's going to be a disaster.
I mean, what's great is to hear there's a consensus on the core values, or at least the Press Council. Now, when it comes to freedom of information, we know that the Pakatan Harapan governments of Selangor and I believe also Penang, experimented with their own Freedom of Information Act, and it was heavily criticized for really not having enough muscle, right, and in not providing the opportunity for the public to interrogate government and its decisions, how it spends money and so on. Where is that Freedom of Information Act going? Is there a consensus? This is not a government, even under Pakatan Harapan, given to necessary to being transparent or having accountability forced upon them. So,
yes, I totally agree. Maybe there's not yet a consensus on freedom of information. I think there are two concerns. On the government's concern, where do you draw a line on transparency? I think that's the question. And the question is, what amount of resources do you provide to make information transparent? from what I understand, the government is going towards digitization and digital transformation. So they may see these things to come first before a Freedom of Information Act. On the other hand, we believe that both should go together. We should not have to wait.
Right.
So I think that we would really try to encourage the government to think that transparency is a core value of governance. When you have transparency, you build up credibility. When you have credibility, people will vote for you. So
Hopefully, yes, that is the assumption.
That is the assumption. So we would really try to persuade the government that this is the right direction to go for.
Okay, all right. In the few minutes that we have left, I really want to talk about MalaysiaKini's way forward because, yeah, in the last 20 years, you've invested a lot in technology. You've placed a lot of bets on using data and analytics. What is next for MalaysiaKini? Where do you see yourself next?
I think definitely we will invest in more long-form journalism, whether it's investigative journalism, data journalism, feature writing. We're even looking at making more video, which is slightly more long-form video. I think that especially long-form video has the opportunity for people to really understand a topic in more depth. I think news
is that going against the current media trends? I mean, I read somewhere that our average attention span is the first 30 seconds. Actually, even less than that, 15 seconds or so.
I think the studies I've seen are a little bit of both. When it comes to immediate stuff, our attention is really short. But a lot of people are also sitting down, with Netflix, and watching entire episode or documentary
entire season, right?
Entire season, right? So I think the question is that if you make something a little bit entertaining and engaging, people are actually willing to sit down for long hours and be informed of an issue which they care about. So which they don't get in the news bite.
Okay.
So
more
I think
context, right?
Yes, I think it's like kind of a news bite to stay in touch with what's happening every day, and then good long-form journalism to be informed about the critical issues.
Okay, last question, half second for you to answer. MalaysiaKini always very serious, very earnest. Are you guys going to get sexy in the future? Are you just going to remain your kind of straight jack, very kind of proper?
What does sexy mean to Sharaad Kuttan?
We are sexy, Sharaad.
Are you?
Okay. No, I think definitely we things will change. Both Theo and I have worked in MalaysiaKini for 20 years. So, and internet's a very young thing, digital is a very young thing. So things will have to move, things will have to change, and we'll have to redefine how we do things, the formats that we do. But the mission about doing good journalism, fair, balanced, informative, that will not change. So we'll stick to that, and who knows where we will be, what kind of format, but we'll definitely safeguard our principles of journalism.
All right, there you go. That's all the time we have on the show tonight. Thank you so much for being with us on the show, Prem. It's been a pleasure. Congratulations on the 20 years. I'm Melisa Idris, with me Sharaad Kuttan. We're signing off tonight. We'll be back with another episode of Consider This tomorrow. See you then.